Please keep it going for Cindy, everybody.
When I first saw the theme for tonight, I also thought of Mick Jagger singing "I Can't Get No Satisfaction." That song was recorded in 1965, and the Rolling Stones were one of many bands who came over from England as a part of what was called the British Invasion. And the Beatles were part of them, and I was just a little kid, but I was way into the Beatles. I loved the Beatles. We even had Beatle trading cards. And my favorite one was the John Lennon trading cards because his wife's name was Cynthia, same as mine. So that must have been during my formative years when I first developed a fascination with British men. So about 2 summers ago, I'm sitting on a bench waiting for a train, and this attractive man about my age comes up, sits down right next to me and says, "Lovely morning, isn't it?" I was like, whoa. His name was Steve, or as he would say, it's Steve. So I explained that I was on my way into Philly for a job interview, and he talked a little about his job. The train comes, he gets on one car, I get on another, and that was that. The next time I saw Steve was a couple weeks later. He walks up to me, same spot, and says, "So, did you get the job?" And I said, "Well, no, actually, I'm waiting for that. I'm called in for federal jury duty." So we talk a little bit more. Train comes, he gets on one car, I get another. So the next time I saw Steve was the following week when I got picked for the federal jury. So by now I have a little crush on Steve, because no matter how old you get, you turn into a teenager at the idea of romance. So, but this time, Steve got on the train with me and sat down right next to me. So I was as thrilled as a 10-year-old with a John Lennon trading card. I mean, it made me wish we were on one of those old-fashioned trains that I could pull the cord and the whistle would go woo, woo, and like smoke would come out of the little chimney thing, because that's how excited I was that this charming guy and I were actually getting somewhere. So we ride into town together. By the time we get into Philadelphia, he asks me my phone number, calls me for a date. So the next time I saw Steve was the following week. I meet him in Philadelphia. We have this lovely dinner, and we ride home on the train together because, of course, we live in the same town. So he calls me the next day for a date, but that date got canceled because he was busy with work or something. Then the next date got canceled because he said he realized he was still in love with his ex-wife, even though they'd been split for a year. So I said, I understood. You know, he said, I just wasn't really ready to start dating again. I said, no problem. I thank you for your honesty. So the next time I saw Steve was a few weeks later, because now I was starting that job that I'd interviewed for on the first day that I met him. So I'm sitting there, and sure enough, he comes up. I was a little nervous about maybe seeing him again, but comes up and sits down on our bench and says hello, but then immediately opens his laptop. Like, that's the end of that conversation. But then a minute or two later, this other woman comes up, and they say hello, exchange a few words like casual acquaintances. The train comes, I get on the train. A few minutes later, this other woman gets on the train, a few seats in front of me. Then Steve gets on the train, sits down next to this woman, and starts chatting her up. And I was like, what? This is unbelievable. Is this his MO? Like, he meets women on the train and then like goes out on a date or two and then dumps us when the thrill of the chase is gone? Like, doesn't he realize we all live in the same town and that the dumped women might start piling up? Like, the conductor, instead of saying, you know, commuters want to ride in the quiet car, they'll be like, anyone who's dated this man, please move to the rear car. So I'm sitting there, and I was getting really annoyed watching Steve and this woman laughing and talking. And it reminded me of something that happened to me when I was in my late 20s. I had met a guy, went out a time or two, and then I found out he was married, so I broke that off. A few weeks later, I run into this guy and his wife in a diner where I was having breakfast with some friends. So I took great satisfaction when I was leaving the diner, walking right up to his table, smiling, big warm hello. I thought he was going to choke on his Scrapple. But then I just turned and walked away. So I thought of that, and I'm trying to, on this train ride, sort of amusing myself with ways that I could get back at Steve. When I got off at 30th Street Station, had to walk by his seat, I thought I could say, oh, hi, Steve. What was the name of that romantic restaurant you took me to last month? I just want to recommend it to a friend. Or then I thought, well, maybe I could just say to the woman, listen, honey, he might like you now, but pretty soon you're going to be riding a few rows back with the rest of us leftovers. But I didn't wind up saying anything to them. I got to my stop, and I got off, and I didn't even look in their direction. Because I think that in the 30 years between those two events, that I might have learned something. Like that maybe I wasn't really going to feel any better just by making somebody else feel bad. Or maybe I was just thinking back to those immortal words of Mick Jagger. you can't always get what you want. Thank you.
Cindy, everybody.